Music world is mourning the loss of a musical legend, Prince. His body was discovered this morning at his Paisley Park compound in suburban Minnesota earlier today, just outside of Minneapolis. 57 years of age. Cause of death is still unknown, although it had been reported that he'd been dealing with a severe case of the flu just days prior. Welcome to the program, folks. I'm Dana Lash, and of course you can live tweet us your thoughts during today's broadcast using the hashtag Daily Dana. Now, Prince's birth name, Prince Rogers Nelson, born into a musical family in Minneapolis, the voice of Minnesota. And Prince, of course, began playing piano. He played a number of different instruments. He began playing piano at the age of 7. His album 1999 with hits like Little Red Corvette made him a household name. He was one of the most influential artists of all time, winning 7 Grammy Awards, and he earned 30 nominations. Prince recorded 9 songs for the soundtrack on Tim Burton's 1989 Batman, sonically defining Batman. His film Purple Rain won an Academy Award for Best Original Song Score. He'll be remembered as a musical genius, an icon, a legend, a trendsetter, blending musical genres like no other musician. One important quality sometimes overshadowed by his groundbreaking music, his selfless acts of generosity. Prince donated millions of dollars to various charities throughout his life. Simply put, Prince was a giant. Joining me now is Ralphie Aversa, DJ at PLJ Radio. Ralphie, good to have you. This has been a really rough year for music. I mean, we've had Glenn Frey, we've had David Bowie, and Prince, who, 57 is really young. That's a really young age, and we know from the reports on his way back from his concert in Atlanta, they were forced to stop in Moline, Illinois, where he was dealing with severe flu. He was hospitalized. I know that they haven't said anything about cause of death, but it leads one to believe that it might be flu related.
Perhaps, or maybe it was something even more serious. I just think right now there's so much speculation, and you're hearing so many different reports from his camp and not from his camp. It's obviously going to be a matter of weeks before we truly know what he passed from, but still just so shocking. And you see that, you read that in the reaction from artists all across genres of entertainment.
Yeah, Gene Simmons, everyone from Billy Idol to Gene Simmons, and of course Morris Day and the Time, who Prince helped kickstart their career. They had tweeted, "Right now there are no words that can express the feelings we have for our dear brother Prince. Thank you." And it is because he'd been on tour. He'd released a number of albums in the past 18 months, toured heavily as well. And then, of course, he was still with his compound there at Paisley Park, had people over, was still, entertaining, had people come and visit and all of that stuff. And he was still obviously in the process of writing music. So it's not, David Bowie, there were some rumors that he had been dealing with health issues, but really not so much with Prince.
Yeah, with David Bowie, it was kind of known in some circles that he was battling cancer. Certainly not with Prince at all, but that really shouldn't surprise us because Prince, throughout his life in the public eye, was a very private person and a very guarded person as well.
And this 7 Grammy Awards, 30 nominations, 39 albums, of course. And everybody grew up with this music. My mom even texted me earlier today, Ralphie, my mother, and she all these sad emojis like, "I can't believe Prince died. This is horrible." That's how his music spanned generations and genres. He welded together so many different genres. An amazing guitar player. I've seen him in concert multiple times. Nobody had that energy, the ability to play multiple instruments, and then the songwriting as well.
Yeah, and the songwriting is very interesting because he used so many different names, including Prince. We don't even know how many songs to truly attribute to him. Maybe 500, maybe thousands even. But no question, the cliche is break the mold. It applies to no one more than Prince.
Right, and of course he launched a number of other artists as well. I mentioned earlier Morris Day and the Time, but he also collaborated with artists like Sheena Easton. He collaborated with the Bangles. He did a lot of work. Tell us a little bit just about some of the affiliations and associations he had with other artists, because a lot of people owe their careers to Prince.
Well, just a few years ago here in New York, I had a chance to interview his backup band, his most recent one, Third Eye Girl, and they were getting ready to release their own music. And when I had spoken with them here in Brooklyn, they were so just happy with not only how Prince had influenced them, but just how supportive he was of them going out on their own and releasing their own album. So that's the one thing you hear when you talk to people that have had a chance to work with Prince, just what a genuine good person he was.
He was intensely private. He became very religious later on in his life. He even became a vegan, very health conscious, very religious, very demure in private. In public rather, and he said he wasn't feeling well. He had canceled at least one concert, but as you were saying, because he was so intensely private, I think the only thing that anyone has known is that he went to a Walgreens, I think 7 o'clock or something last night. That's something that seems routine. You're under the weather, you're sick, you go to Walgreens, you go to a CVS, you pick up your prescription. That's really nothing out of the ordinary. What do we know just about what he was doing or how he was feeling in the last week?
Well, of course, he had to cancel some concert dates. However, he had made the concert up in Atlanta. And then obviously, as you referenced earlier, his flight was forced to land. An emergency landing, by the way, that took place only 45 minutes from his house. So that leads you to believe that it might have been something very serious. That's the reason why they had to land. But other than that, I mean, he's been touring throughout this year. I mean, I remember speaking on my radio show on 95.5 PLJ with Damaris Lewis, who's been his muse and his backup dancer for a number of years. They were out in San Francisco at Oracle Arena at a Golden State Warriors game a few months ago before one of his concerts there at the Oracle Arena where the Warriors play. So again, the recent reports from TMZ came as a shock, and now today his passing at the age of 57 has just left everyone stunned.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't want to believe it. They loved him for music, and one of the other things that he did, and I know he addressed the unrest in Baltimore. He released a song called Baltimore. He performed a benefit concert in the city. Even the way that he would address, which he always did so rarely, Ralphie, and you know this, covering this, he was always so unifying and so classy and so above the board in how he would approach any issue. Nobody felt ostracized, and I mean, in addition to his music, that's a skill right there as well.
Well, he allowed people, and I think this is the one thing that we're seeing from the way artists especially have reacted to his death. He allowed people to feel comfortable in their own skin, regardless of if they were different or not. And I mean, that type of influence certainly will last generations.
A lot of people can take lessons from that. Ralphie Aversa, 95.5 PLJ, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dana.
When we come back.